Steve Cohen and Juan Soto meeting next week. So Scott Boras, we all know, is the agent of Juan Soto. And, there was actually some talk today of, could Juan Soto and Scott Boras really drag this out? But I guess there is an expectation among executives around Major League Baseball. This could actually end up going quicker than people think. And I was kind of touching on that yesterday. I was kind of saying, Scott Boras, we saw what he did last offseason, dragging things out into spring training. But, when you look at someone like Juan Soto, you're not going to be having a bunch of teams in the mix. We saw it last year with Ohtani. Obviously, Ohtani, I think you could definitely say is the best player in the world right now. And, he ended up signing before the new year. So I think you could see the same thing with Soto. We'll see. Obviously, you got the winter meetings around that time. I would imagine something by at least the end of the winter meetings, at least around that time, should get done for Soto, especially when you consider, many people among Major League Baseball are thinking it's really going to come down to the Yankees and the Mets, unless a team, really surprisingly jumps into it. The Blue Jays, the Giants, they're teams that are ready to throw some money around, but, will he go there? We'll see. It does seem like, on the outside looking in, it'll probably come down to the Yankees or the Mets. I personally think the Mets have a pretty good advantage at this point, considering the flexibility and just the need that they have. I think the Mets make a lot of sense. I think the pinstripes definitely weigh heavily, but do they weigh all that much to Soto? I think Soto, at the end of the day, I think he just wants to go to a team that has a chance to win, and he can build his legacy, whether that's with the Yankees or the Mets. So, and as long as he's getting himself a rather good payday, I think Soto, if he went to the Mets, I think he would be okay not wearing the pinstripes. But, hey, we'll see. He had a good year, the best year of his career with the Yankees. And, if he stayed with the Yankees, I wouldn't be surprised at all. But we'll see how far the Yankees are willing to go. Bob Nightingale was touching on this today at the general manager meetings. I believe he was speaking with, who was it? John Morosi, I believe. There is a clip of that on Twitter somewhere. And he was saying that people are already wondering if the Yankees are making contingency plans. They're going to offer Soto a number, and if the Mets up that, if they beat that offer, then the Yankees could very well just walk away. And I've been saying that too, because when you look at the Yankees payroll, it's high, right? Obviously the Yankees got the money. I say that every single time, but at the end of the day, when you got Judge, Stanton, Rodon, on that payroll, it's a lot of money, man. And then you're adding Soto for $45 million per year. And, Stanton's not coming off the books for another few years. Rodon, you got him for, the next 4 years now. So, the Yankees at some point, with all that beef on the payroll, they might just tap out. Yes, it is the Yankees, but how far are they willing to go? We'll see. We will see. But definitely keep your eyes out for this next week. And we got a couple of guys in here signing up for memberships. Santino William, thank you so much for signing up for memberships. I do appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much. But yeah, I think, getting into the meeting part of this, I think it's interesting that, we're very early in the offseason and we already got a meeting between Cohen and Soto. Steve Cohen, hey, this guy's a businessman. He likes to get out there, get his hands dirty, and he likes to meet with these guys as soon as he can. That's just the businessman in him. We saw that last year with Yamamoto, right? He was really pushing on the meetings. I believe he went to Japan at one point last year, so not surprised to see this. And, could this end up being where, if this is the first team that Soto is meeting with, could that be a leg up for the Mets as well? We will see. We will see. But, yeah, I don't think we're necessarily surprised about them meeting. But, hey, it's pretty soon. Maybe that could say something. We'll see. But let's get to the next story here. And we are going to be diving in here to the White Sox. And this actually ties into my Red Sox a little bit. I'll talk about that in just a second here. But Chris Getz, he was speaking with Bruce Levine of 670 The Score, saying that the White Sox are looking to get position players back in trades. Now, when you think about the White Sox, top prospects here, looking at the White Sox top prospects, you got a lot of good pitching here, right? Noah Schultz, one of the top prospects in all of Major League Baseball. They picked Hagen Smith up in the draft. Remember, they picked up Jairo Iriarte in the Dylan Cease trade. You got some good pitching here. Even go a little further down, Mason Adams, you got Kai Busch in here. All of these guys are in the top 10. Now, when you take a look at the position players, right? Yeah, Colson Montgomery, he had a pretty bad overall season last year. He did heat up in the second half, or not the second half, the final month of the season. So let's see if he can carry that over. But he definitely took a step back overall last year. You do have someone like an Edward Guerrero, who you got back in the Lucas Giolito trade. But after that, you see a bit of a drop-off, right? You got George Wolkow. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But he's still pretty far away. I don't know. When you take a look at the numbers with him, he did have some pretty good numbers, 808 OPS overall. But, when you got him at number 7 here, there's a drop-off, right? They need some guys, they need bats. So, yeah, I'm not surprised to see this at all. I've been already talking about this, right? So, they need guys that can really give you some impact on the position player side of things. Now, when it comes to Garrett Crochet, right? He is the big trade piece for the, that is not Garrett Crochet. There's Garrett Crochet. He is the big trade piece here for the White Sox, right? Everyone thought he was going to get moved to the deadline, but then we had the whole thing where if he went to a playoff contender and if they wanted him to pitch in the postseason, he wanted to have an extension. But And obviously that kept him from getting traded. Teams were not interested in that. But I think that shows right there that because of that, he is interested in signing an extension with a team. I think that shows, that he's not a guy that's, dead set on getting to free agency. He is open to signing a contract, right? And that was a report, I believe, that was floating around either today or in the last couple of days. I can't remember exactly. But any team that he goes to, he is willing to sign an extension, right? I mean, obviously, he was willing to sign one at the deadline. So if you're thinking about some teams here that could go after, hold on a second. I lost my, what do we got here? I just lost my page. I don't know what the heck I just did with my page. But if we are looking at the Fangraphs farm system rankings, right? I don't believe this is updated yet. I believe they still might need to be up. I think it is. I don't know. I can't remember the last time they updated it. But when you take a look at teams that have 50 grade bats, right? Take a look here. Cubs, at least at the last time they updated this, they have 5 bats that are a 50 grade. Seattle has 5. The Mets have 3. The Tigers have 3. The Dodgers, Red Sox have 2, right? But if you go here to the left, and then you start to get to the 55 grades, right? The Dodgers got 1 55 grade. The Red Sox got 1. Cleveland's got 1. Go over to the left one more time. Go over to the 60 grade bats. And at the top here, with the teams that have all these 50 grade bats, out of all of these teams, there's only one team that has a 60 grade bat along with all of these other bats that they have, the 55s and the 50s. And that's the Red Sox. They got 1 60 grade bat. I believe that is Marcelo Meyer here. I think that probably should be 2 at this point. I think it should be Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer as 60 grades. That's why I don't think they've updated it. And Christian Campbell, I believe, is graded at a 45 plus. I would put Christian Campbell at least at a 50 at this point, probably at a 55 in my opinion. The point is that they have a lot of bats here that are impact, at least could have a good chance of being an impact player. So right now, I'm looking at a team like the Red Sox that absolutely can get a deal done for Garrett Crochet. If I'm looking at some other teams, now, sure, the Mets, right, as of right now at least, no 60 grade bats within their system, no 55 grade bats, but you got 3 50 grade bats in this system, right? If we go take a look at a couple of these guys here, you got Drew Gilbert, you got Jet Williams, right? I'm going blank on the other name. Who was the other name? Ryan Clifford. You got Ryan Clifford in there. I mean, they did draft Carson Bench. I would imagine you probably just drafted him in the first round. I mean, are you already going to trade him? I would imagine not. But I think the Mets could put together a compelling package where maybe you do something like a Jet Williams and a Drew Gilbert, or a Jet Williams and a Ryan Clifford, throw in a couple other pieces there. I think the Dodgers, right? Let's talk about the Dodgers here. They definitely have, I think, a piece that they could really, at least a couple of pieces that they could put together. I'm looking at someone like Dalton Rushing and Jose DePaula. Now, Dalton Rushing supposedly was a guy that the White Sox wanted at the trade deadline, and that didn't happen. The Dodgers did not want to give him up. So I would imagine their tune has probably not changed at this point. Jose DePaula. Now, but this is where I'm kind of curious about the Dodgers, right? If the Dodgers already said no on Dalton Rushing, I would imagine they probably said, how about Jose DePaula? I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm just speculating. But if they couldn't come to an agreement at the deadline, are they going to be able to come to an agreement now? So I wonder if the Dodgers would be a team that you could, again, if they already didn't come to an agreement at the deadline, maybe if they have a bit more time now in the offseason, maybe they could work something out. But for me, again, I'm looking at teams like the Mets, like the Red Sox. Let's take a look at the Cubs here. They got a lot of bats, right? Could the Cubs maybe do some kind of a deal where you do Matt Shaw, right? You got Owen Casey, right? You got Evan Alcantara. You got a few bats here. Could they maybe work something out with the Cubs, right? Just go across town. Again, it's going to be interesting when it comes to this. Again, I'll say it one more time. I think the Red Sox and the Mets, they're probably the two teams, unless another team really jumps on board. I think those are the two teams you have to look at this point. Definitely count the Dodgers in, the Cubs, like I just mentioned, and even for someone like Luis Robert. I've been on the thinking here for Luis Robert that the Dodgers, they probably hang on to him until at least early on in 2025. However, I actually wonder about that. I wonder, because we know what Robert can do when he's healthy. I actually wonder if maybe a team, they try to step up for him, depending on how the market shakes out, right? Maybe a team that's going after someone like a Teoscar Hernandez, if they come up short on him, could you maybe turn to the White Sox and ask about Luis Robert, right? I would imagine the White Sox, even though Robert's value has taken a big hit because of the injury-riddled season that he just had, I would imagine the Dodgers are still going to be asking a lot for him. Maybe a team, like I said, if they do miss out on Teoscar, maybe if they do miss out on Tyler O'Neill, could you maybe turn to the White Sox and say, all right, listen, we're not going to give you maybe as much as you were thinking, last offseason. He's definitely taken a hit with the value. But we get it. You want to get at least a pretty decent package for the guy. Because when he is healthy, he has good value. So maybe they could kind of meet in the middle on Luis Robert. Maybe even the White Sox could pay like a little bit of cash or something like that to try and get a bit more. Because I'll say it one more time. He missed a lot of time this year, and he did not have a great season this year. I blame the injuries for that, right? When your flow has just been ruined, it's a bit hard to get back on track. So I think with a fresh start next year, healthy season, he'll probably get back to what he was doing a couple of years ago. So yeah, I would imagine, a team could step up for Robert this offseason. I still think there's a chance they could definitely hang on to him until early on in the season at least, but then you are running the risk at that point of what if he gets hurt again, right? What if this kind of, is this really the best chance for the White Sox you're kind of gambling either way at that point. If you hang on to him and he ends up doing great, and he's hitting well in the first couple of months, well, then you can really cash in at that point. But maybe a team out there thinks, okay, let's check out the medicals. How's he doing? What's the health looking like? How's he doing this offseason? Yada, yada, yada. And if they feel comfortable that he will probably be good to go in 25, then maybe a team will step up for him, step up their offer. Because right now, again, you realistically, because of the year that he just had, you probably you shouldn't have to give up, top echelon prospects to get it done. But I think you could see a team out there maybe give them at least a compelling offer to think about. We'll see. We'll see. But again, I think you're going to see teams looking at the bats in free agency at this point. Even, other bats possibly even on the trade market, right? We'll see. But I wouldn't count out Robert this offseason. But I would also prepare yourself that maybe they hang on to him and he could be, a deadline guy or maybe a trade in May or June in 25. But Garrett Crochet, I definitely think, is going to get moved. We will see what ends up happening with that. Also, if you didn't see on Twitter, I actually put today, if you want to go take a look at that, I actually put like a conversation starter on there. White Sox, Red Sox fans, put together your trade packages for Garrett Crochet. I'm interested to see. White Sox fans, what would you want for Garrett Crochet? Red Sox fans, I keep seeing pretty much a lot of the same kind of offers. I see a lot of Red Sox fans trying to start a package with someone like Wilyer Abreu. I could see that for maybe, I don't know. I don't know what Chris Getz is, what he is thinking. I would love to be able to, say, hey, well, what are you looking for? You want a guy that's got 5 years of club control and Wilyer Abreu, or do you want a guy that's more of a prospect, right? I don't know exactly, but I've seen a lot of people out there suggesting Wilyer Abreu from the Red Sox. Maybe you could throw in a couple of the guys in the top 10, like Franklin Arias, who is the number 6 prospect. You got Yoeilin Cespedes, who was looking good until he got hurt this year. He's the number 7 prospect. Could you do something in terms of building a package around Abreu, who, again, he has 5 seasons of club control, and he had just a good rookie season. He just had a good rookie season. Or are you going to have to part with someone like a Marcelo Meyer? It's interesting. But as always, we'll just have to wait and see on that. But let's get to the next topic here. Let's go to Alex Bregman. Mr. Alex Bregman. And that is not Alex Bregman. There's Alex Bregman. So we talked about this yesterday. Willy Adames, he is willing to, move to another position if a team in contention is, willing to give him a good offer out there. Could he move to second base, third base? So, yeah, it seems like he's up for it. But now it looks like Alex Bregman could be up for it as well. And he is willing to move to second base. And obviously, Alex Bregman, we know he has been a very reliable defender at third base for his entire career. There had been talks about how he could possibly play first base, but this is not a surprise because when you start to see guys at this point in their career where they're hitting free agency around 30 years old, 29, 30, 31 years old, versatility is an important thing at that point. With Bregman, honestly, I actually think he would be a good defender at second base. Now, if we were to actually take a look here when it comes to Bregman, funny enough, even though he's been a very good defender at third base for his career, doesn't have a great arm. But his range is very good. So when you take a look at the range, he ranked in the top 10%. So yeah, I mean, if you're just basing it off of range and arm strength, he looks like a second baseman. So I'm not surprised to see something like this, to be completely honest. Now, when we're thinking about possibilities, if a team were to look for him or look for him to be a second baseman, really, I don't think it opens up all that much out there unless maybe some other moves get made. But if I'm thinking of some teams at the top of my head for him to play second base, I'm looking at the Mariners. Right, same division right now. Dylan Moore is projected to be there. You do got Ryan Bliss. I wonder if he could be a guy that can end up playing there. I've talked about Gleyber Torres being a possibility at second base for them. But if he's willing to be an everyday second baseman, I think he would be a good add for the Mariners. They need a guy that they need more guys that can work the counts. Bregman is a guy that has been a very patient hitter over his career. He's a bit more aggressive this past year. You saw that on base come down, but he's always had a pretty good on base percentage. So I think he would be a really solid fit with the Mariners. And sorry to, hey, go giraffe neck Robbie here, but the Red Sox had some of the worst production at second base last year. You brought in Vaughn Grissom in the Chris Sale trade last offseason, and he basically just had a wash of a season. I mean, he was pretty much hurt the entire year. When he was in there, he wasn't really doing all that much. Could you turn to someone like Alex Bregman? And realistically, you could have Bregman be a fit here in a couple of different ways. There's been a lot of chatter over Rafael Devers this offseason when it comes to the defense. Rafael Devers, going back to 2022, out of all the third basemen that have played 2,000 innings at third base, Rafael Devers ranks dead last in defense among those guys. I believe it's 17 in that group. He is 17th. He ranks the worst in outs above average. I can't speak. He ranks the worst in fielding run value. Sorry, listen, Rafael Devers to me, at this point, I've been talking about this for a couple of years. I mean, Rafael Devers to me is a DH. He reminds me so much of David Ortiz. Like, it's so crazy because you look at Devers, 28 years old. David Ortiz was playing first base up until, full time really until 2004. All right. Remember the Red Sox back in 2004? They went and got Doug Minkiewicz. They were having Kevin Millar play there too, but he was just awful defensively. Yeah. I mean, you had to go get Doug Minkiewicz at the deadline to help out with the defense at first base. Ortiz was playing a lot of first base up to that point. And he was 28 years old at the time. I swear, Rafael Devers to me is like Big Papi 2.0, right? Devers' bat is so good. I personally would have him DH. I mean, that's just me. I would have him, play some third base part-time, right? If a guy needs a day off. That is just my opinion at the end of the day. Numbers speak, even the eye test. I've watched how many games. Every game, it feels like there is just some kind of a wild ride with Devers involved, right? Whether if it's a bad throw, a bobble, something. I just don't think he's a great third baseman. And I think people at this point, if you're saying otherwise, I think you're just lying to yourself. I see a lot of people out there say, oh, we're paying him to be a third baseman. I would pay the man not to play third base. Here's an extra $5 million, dude. We need you to stop playing third because you're hurting our team. Sorry. Listen, obviously that's not what I would actually say if I'm Alex Cora, obviously. But listen, you need to do something about the defense there. Anyway, on my soapbox here. Alex Bregman would be a huge improvement at third base. But now he could also play second. So is there a road for Bregman to possibly go to the Red Sox? Yeah. There is. There's a couple of different roads now. Will they spend the money? I don't know. But we got some other teams. Maybe the Giants. The Giants could definitely be a team that could add a second baseman. Casey Schmidt is projected to be at second base as of right now. Hasn't really gotten much going in his career so far. What could you do there? I mean, but there could be an avenue for Bregman to go to the Giants. A team... I'm looking more at third base, but the Toronto Blue Jays, I think, could be a pretty good fit for Alex Bregman. I think Will Wagner at this point is probably better suited for second base. But third base, yeah, I think Alex Bregman definitely could be a fit. We're talking about the Yankees earlier with Juan Soto. If the Yankees don't bring back Juan Soto, I think there is a path for Bregman to go to the Yankees, right? It would be far cheaper than Juan Soto. And right now you got Oswaldo Cabrera projected for third base. DJ LeMahieu is probably done at third base for his career. He needs to stay at first base, I think, until the end of that contract. But yeah, Bregman, yeah, for sure. What you could also do, I think this is an interesting way to look at it. Jazz Chisholm is currently projected at second base. You could put Jazz Chisholm out in center field, and you could do Bregman at second base, right? And then you could have Oswaldo Cabrera or Oswald Peraza try to get the third base job. So I think there's an avenue here for Bregman in a couple of different ways. So look out for the Yankees. I think that's very possible. And a team that I predicted for Bregman were the Detroit Tigers. Now, maybe my take, looking back on it in hindsight, maybe it was a bit lazy because I'm just looking at the AJ Hinch Bregman connection. But I think there is a path here. You got Jace Young, where, he hasn't really fully grabbed, a spot at the major league level by the horns, I would imagine they probably still would like to give him a chance. But if you really wanted to go with a veteran guy, Bregman could definitely be a good option there. He wouldn't play second base here because you got Colt Keith. If I'm leaning one way right now, I would say probably Jace Young is a guy. Will they go out there and spend the money on Bregman? I don't know about that. But right now, if you're looking at second base, I think the Mariners could be an option. Maybe the Red Sox could be an option. I think they could be an option for Willy Adames too. Again, if they want to spend the money, we haven't seen them really want to throw down money for a lot of these guys out there. Maybe the Giants, the Blue Jays, more for third base. The Yankees. I think the Yankees could actually be really interesting. But we'll see how this goes. But let's move on to the next story here. And we got the Phillies in the news. Got the Phillies. And, the Phillies I find to be an interesting team coming into this offseason. Right? A lot of expectations going into the postseason this year. And they fell flat in their face in the division round to the Mets. And so now it's weird because you have this very talented team. But it's like, what do you do? Right? Because you already have a ton of big contracts. You got stars. You got a 1-2 punch in Wheeler and Nola. I mean, when you look at the lineup, you got bats up and down this lineup. Really, what do you do with this team? Now, when it came to some comments recently that Dave Dombrowski made, where were these comments? I think I might have lost the comments. But basically, Dave Dombrowski, here we go. He was asked if the Phillies would be big game hunting this winter. And they ended up saying, our ownership allows us to do a lot of things, but sometimes that's not what you want. We have a lot of good star players on our team. So read that as you would. Right? And Dombrowski, that was the president of the Phillies that made those comments. And Dombrowski, he ended up saying here that they want to be open-minded this offseason. And he says here, the club has as many star players as about anybody in baseball, and that before adding that sometimes the supporting cast is where the biggest need sits. So, yeah, when you're looking at this Phillies team, I mean, you really, when I look at articles out there for the Phillies, you see a lot of them like, oh, let's go get Teoscar Hernandez. Let's go get, I don't know, whoever. Let's go get Juan Soto, right? I mean, sure, but, you've already landed guys. You've already signed Harper a few years ago. You brought in Trey Turner. You got Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos. That hasn't brought you a championship, right? You extended Zach Wheeler. You extended Aaron Nola. You have given out the big money. You got the guys. So I'm wondering here, what do the Phillies do? I will say this. One guy that I got my eye on is Nick Castellanos. If there is one area that you could improve, right field defense. I think Castellanos at this point needs to be a DH. Kyle Schwarber, I mean, listen, if I'm hanging on to one of these guys, I'm hanging on to Kyle Schwarber, right? Kyle Schwarber is going to give you 35, 40 home runs per year. Castellanos, I think, can be a good DH somewhere. I think they need to move him. That is what I would really focus on. I think they need to eat the money and just get him off the roster and go get a more athletic right fielder, a guy that is going to give you some better defense out in right field. I think for center field, could you really just look at a guy like Brandon Marsh and maybe, Johan Rojas? Could you possibly, I don't know, could you maybe do like a trade or something, and maybe you could go after like an everyday center fielder? Could they maybe make a trade for someone like a Luis Robert? I think that I'm going to be looking at the Phillies when it comes to the trade market. And I think if they could move Castellanos somehow, I think you could see a situation where, maybe they go after someone like Tyler O'Neill, right? Yes, he has had his injuries, but he would give you better defense in the outfield. And maybe they try to beef up the pitching a little bit. I do think they're going to have to add at least an arm for this bullpen. I went with Kirby Yates in my predictions. I think just getting a veteran guy for the back end after losing Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Estevez, I think getting a veteran like Yates could make some sense. But you still got a lot of good arms in this bullpen. Could you possibly try to move Taijuan Walker? Again, you would have to eat the money there. So I don't know really how much you're going to get back for him. Ranger Suarez is an interesting case. Got off to a good start this year. But he kind of free-falled in the second half, right? He was pretty ineffective. Maybe they could do something with Suarez. Maybe help get you, some kind of a piece. Maybe you could package someone like Castellanos with Suarez. If you don't want to eat any of the money, Suarez can make up the difference in value. I'm not sure how much that would make up. I'd have to look at it. But, I think the Phillies, they have some... I think they can have an interesting offseason here. I'm, again, looking at the trade market. And if there's a guy that you need to make some trades, it's Dave Dombrowski, right? That's what I think is going to end up happening here. Let's move on here to our last story. And we got Teoscar Hernandez. Let's talk a little... actually, you know what? Hold on. Before I move on to Teoscar, let me get back to the one more thing here. Jeff Hoffman is actually garnering interest as a starter. Now, remember last year, we all saw Jordan Hicks get signed by the Giants, and then we all kind of got surprised at the news that the Giants were going to have him be in the rotation. And we were all like, whoa, what the? Jordan Hicks, a starter, huh? So we have seen it. We've seen it with a couple of guys. Reynaldo Lopez, right? Reynaldo Lopez was a guy where people were wondering last offseason, is he going to be in the bullpen? Is he going to be a starter? What is he going to be? We've seen some other guys, right? Jose Soriano for the Angels had success there. Seth Lugo, when you take a look at what he's done over the last couple of years, remember with Lugo, he was a reliever with the Mets, right? So, Jeff Hoffman, he's been very good. He has been excellent. I mean, look at the numbers that he had this past year. ERA at a 2.17, FIP at a 2.54. You might be wondering, well, why would Jeff Hoffman be a starter? Well, he's one of the few relievers out there. Remember, he was a starter back, 2020, 2021, when he was with the Reds. They put him in the bullpen. But remember, with Jeff Hoffman, this is a guy that works with 4 pitches here, right? He stuck with 2 for the most part. He went with the slider and the fastball, but he's got a sinker, right? He's got some other pitches that he can work with. So he's one of the few relievers that can really come at you with a bunch of different pitches, and that's what makes him successful. As a starter, I think teams look at him and think, you know what? We can maximize this guy. We can get more out of this guy. And, I could go through all the teams here. Teams need starting pitching, right? If I'm looking at teams, but I'm looking at it from a point of view, which team, because this is a guy obviously he's not going to be the ace of your staff, right? But if I'm looking at teams that could use some starting pitching, but maybe they don't want to break the bank for starting pitching, I don't know, like a team maybe like the Angels, right? They just brought in Kyle Hendricks on a very cheap deal. If they're not looking to, if he is looking to be a starter, and maybe the Angels go to him and say, hey, we can put you in the rotation. We did a good job with Jose Soriano. Maybe the Angels could end up being a team for Jeff Hoffman if he wanted to sign as a starter, right? Could you see a team maybe like the Brewers where they're pretty analytical when it comes to the pitching side of things? Again, I don't know how much he would cost as a starter. If you're looking at the numbers with Hoffman, because it gets a little dicey at that point. If you're looking at Hoffman, hold on, let me go to the relievers here. Where's Hoffman? I can't find Hoffman. There's Hoffman. So this year, he put together a 2.0 Fangraph WAR. That's worth $16 million right there. $8 million per win. Maybe teams out there think, he could end up being like a 3-win pitcher. Now, I'm not saying you pay the guy $24 million per year, but could you see maybe teams, maybe they go that Jordan Hicks contract, right? What was Hicks? What was he, 15 per year? He was 11 per year. Okay, so that's, So I don't know. Could be interesting. Could you see teams? Well, with Hicks, I think he was a little different. He had In 2023, he had a 1.1 wins above replacement, which is worth right around $8 million. And they gave him $11 million per year. So this year with Hoffman, he was worth $16 million. So honestly, could you see teams maybe even go like 18 per year? I don't know. That might be a stretch. No, I think it's safe to say he could get at least 15, 16 million per year, maybe a little bit more if teams wanted to sign him as a starter. But yeah, looking at some other teams, maybe the Angels, maybe the Brewers, possibly. I mean, could the Giants? I mean, we just saw the Giants do it with Hicks. They're going to be losing Snell. Maybe they could take a chance. Maybe a team like the Rangers, right? They've been, if they wanted to try and get as much value out of a starter as they can without having to spend a ton of money like you would have to for Corbin Burns or whatever, could they turn to someone like Hoffman? Dodgers, could the Dodgers be a team? I feel like they need to add more back-end starting pitching at this point. You got Ohtani. Where's my charger? I need to charge my laptop. But you got Ohtani. You got Yamamoto. Sorry, everyone. 1 second here. You got Ohtani. You got Yamamoto. You got Glasnow, right? You got some guys coming back like Tony Gonsolin. So maybe Hoffman could be a guy. Maybe they could bring him in as a starter and he can really just work at the back end of the rotation. Maybe the Mets. Mets need starting pitching. So I think it's interesting, right? I think it's interesting. Keep your eyes on this. But moving on here, let's get to Teoscar. Let's get to Teoscar before we wrap things up here for tonight. And where is my story on Teoscar? Have I already lost the story here? I think I already lost the story, everyone. Hold on a second. Here we go. Teoscar Hernandez. The Red Sox, Orioles, Dodgers interested in Teoscar Hernandez. All right, according to Russell Dorsey of Yahoo Sports, is saying that the Dodgers and Hernandez have mutual interest in a reunion. John Morosi, he said here, when I listened to John Morosi, I believe he was on MLB Network today. When I listened to John Morosi, well, that's not loading. I don't know. It didn't sound like that. I don't know. It didn't really sound like that he was saying they were interested. It sounded, maybe I got to listen to it again, but it sounded more along the lines that he was speculating because they needed bats. The Orioles, I find interesting because I'm just wondering at this point, yes, you lost Santander, or you haven't lost him yet, but he could go elsewhere. You already have a full outfield with Cowser. You got Kerstad that needs playing time. You got Mullins, so DH, you got Ryan O'Hearn there. So, yeah, you could fit him in. You could definitely make the fit. But if I'm looking at a team that would have more urgency in wanting to add a right-handed bat, it would be the Red Sox. There are some teams out there that could definitely do it. The Dodgers make still a ton of sense to me. When it comes to the Dodgers, right, you're looking at the current outfield, right? James Outman is projected to be your center fielder, but, look what happened with James Outman this year. Obviously, Tommy Edman, let's see what ends up happening with Tommy Edman. Does he play short? Does he play center field? I don't know. So, but then when you look at left field, you got Andy Pages probably. So yeah, Teoscar going back to the Dodgers, I think could make some sense. But I think it comes down to what are the Dodgers willing to give him? All right, are they willing to go like a 4-year deal? I would imagine Teoscar is going to want a 4-year deal. Right? He took a 1-year deal on himself. Is he going to get 5? I don't know if he's going to go out there and get 5. But could he get 4? I think that's doable, right? Teoscar is now how old? He's, 32 at this point? I swear, I just had all of this open, and I don't even know what ended up happening to it. That happens every time I do a stream, everybody. I'll open up the pages, and I just click out of them. But Teoscar's 32. So, and he's about to, okay, so he just turned 32. So 32, 33, 34, 35. So a 4-year deal runs him through his age 35 season. I would think probably 4 years is tops what he's going to end up getting. I don't know, maybe a fifth. Maybe you could do an option. Maybe. I would say 4. Will the Dodgers want to give him a 4-year deal? Depends. I wonder if the Dodgers at this point, maybe they, I don't know, would they want to? Would they go higher than 3? I don't know. You got a lot of pay. You got a lot of contracts on that payroll. We'll see. I think it comes down to who is going to give him the longest deal. That's what I think he's really going to be looking for. I think I don't know. I don't know him. I'm just speculating. I'm just thinking at this point, you bet on yourself this year. I think you want, at least if it were me, if I bet on myself and I had a great season like he did, I would want to get as many years as I could. And I would think probably 4, maybe 5 years is what I can get. I don't know. It just comes down to if the Dodgers are going to want to do that. I think the Red Sox might, after losing out on him last offseason. You know, they were deep in those negotiations at one point, and they couldn't get a figure done. Maybe this time around, they are a little bit more motivated to try and get something done. I don't know. I think it's going to be really interesting with him. But we'll have to just wait and see, everyone. We'll have to just wait and see. But everyone, we're going to wrap this up here. We're going to end the show for today. And everyone, I want to thank you for coming out tonight. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk to all of your friendly faces. We have our trade predictions coming out tomorrow. Be on the lookout for that. I've already done my free agent predictions, but I got some trade predictions coming out. I already know people are going to get so grumpy with the trade predictions because I have actual trades laid out. Everyone's going to be in the comments ripping it to shreds. No, we're not trading that guy. That's a terrible trade, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, that'll be out tomorrow. I'm excited for it, but be on the lookout. That'll probably be, I would imagine that's going to be posted at some point in the afternoon tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. I got a couple other videos in the works, and yeah, got some good stuff coming. But everyone, remember with the streams, we usually go Sunday through Thursday. I usually don't stream Friday, Saturday unless something big happens. So I would imagine nothing big is going to happen over the next couple of days. So at the very least, I would imagine we're back on Sunday. But again, look out for tomorrow's video. Everyone, have yourself a great night. Thank you for stopping by tonight, and I'll talk to you next time.